Welcome to Pride and Purpose, where I highlight everything positive and good that's going on in Richmond. I'm your host, Jovanka Beckles, and today's show, we will be highlighting urban farms in Richmond. I now have the pleasure of conversing with Andromeda Brooks. Welcome, Andromeda. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
What influenced you to get involved with urban farming?
I've always had a garden in my life, and I had this lot right next door that had nothing going on with it. So I went down to City Hall, got the list of everybody who's involved with the city, and told them that I am going to have a block cleanup on September 31st through October 2nd.
So cool.
You're more than welcome to come down with hopes of a community garden. And January 1, I have been off and running.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. You know that, don't you? Well, you know there are so many groups in Richmond, and that's a really good thing, which is why we're highlighting those groups. But what makes yours different than some of the others?
I'm an individual. It's just me.
Is that right?
It's just me. Realistically, it's just me, and if I can get somebody to come hang out for 15 minutes, next thing they know, they're out there for 45 and they didn't even know it. If I can have a weekend work party where I have kids come out and play and they don't even know they're actually changing their environment.
That's right.
I just recently put up a sign that said, "Come grow tomorrow's food today."
Yes.
And a little kid came up and said, "I'll just go to the store." And I'm like, where do you think the store gets the food?
That's right.
So it's amazing. It's just me. And I encourage everybody else to come outside and see what just you can do.
That's right.
And I have 23 fruit-bearing trees, 7 active food beds, a cornfield.
I'm just really happy to hear how you're educating Richmond residents, how you're educating children, because you're so right. Like so many of our kids in here don't really understand where food comes from, and it sounds like you're doing a really wonderful job of teaching.
Exactly. I mean, all it is watching water, and then in 6 months, you have a bounty to share with everybody.
That's great. So it gives you a sense of pride.
It does. It does. Right back to our pride and purpose of Richmond, right?
Full
circle.
Full circle. Is there anything that you need more of?
Help.
Help. Okay.
Help. Hand to shovel is one thing I would say I'm lacking.
Tell us then how, if someone says, "Oh, I love that. I love what she's doing. How can I get in touch? How can I be down?" How would you suggest they get in touch with you?
Right. I have a couple of ways you can get a hold of me. I am on Facebook.
Okay.
I actually bended knee. Someone said, "You got to be on Facebook to get it out there." So I did go on Facebook, and you can find us on Facebook at Happy Lot Farm and Garden.
Okay.
You can also find me, email me at Andromeda_Brooks, ANDROMEDA_BROOKS @yahoo.com. And I'm in the phone book, and I always accept phone calls, or at least a message.
Oh, great. That's the old school way of doing things. All right. Well, good for you. You don't even seem old enough to remember phone books.
Right? I'm somebody.
That's great. Well,
I'm in talks with a hatchery right now with getting a turkey for Christmas dinner. And I'm not going to fool the animal. Its name is going to be Dinner.
That's right. Just let it know from the very beginning what its purpose is.
Exactly. People have been doing this for many years. It's nothing new.
That's right.
We just forgot it.
If you imagine a better Richmond, what does it look like?
Richmond is great as it sits. Richmond is the diamond in the rough.
That's right.
And we are only as good as our worst person. And if I am the worst person, I'm okay with that. But you got to be outside. You can't be timid. You can't let the neighborhood dictate the way you live.
That's right.
You dictate the way the neighborhood lives.
That's right. Well said. Well said. And I have one other question for you. How do you see urban farming as addressing Richmond's challenges? For example, some of the challenges are the reentry population, homelessness, pollution, and joblessness. How do you see urban farming as addressing some of those issues?
Not only are we taking these abandoned, unabated lots, we can take the ones that don't have structures on them, make farms, and the ones that do have structures, give them to the people who are manning the farms.
Yes.
Or come up with a lease program where you can live here, but you got to work across the street. Because now you're making them buy into their community.
That's right.
And if I don't want to see litter outside,
Yes.
I'll take care of it.
Yes.
And I'll tell everybody else, don't do that.
That's right.
And that is making them claim themselves again, having purpose in themselves again.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a no-brainer in my eyes.
That's right.
Only because I have 2 vacant properties right next to me, and I'm just chomping at the bit, hoping that maybe that I can get them and get people moved in. I mean, it's a great neighborhood.
Yes.
I would not say otherwise.
Right.
But to get people who are disenfranchised there to make their community better, to make them better,
Yes.
it's a win-win.
It sure is. And win-win is what we're after, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much,
You're very
Andromeda.
welcome.
You are so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome to Pride and Purpose, where I highlight all things positive and good that's going on in Richmond. I'm your host, Jovanka Beckles. Today's show features urban farms. My guest today is Linda Schneider from Self-Sustaining Communities. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much for
Really,
having me.
it's a pleasure.
Thanks for doing this.
Hey, so tell me your earliest memories of growing and farming.
I had a little house in El Cerrito that was one of the very first houses there by a Portuguese immigrant family. And they had put in tons of fruit trees, and they grew all their own food.
That's great.
I lived there and added chickens. When I did that, neighbors came flocking around into my backyard. Kids were coming. All these people came around to see this new phenomenon. So I knew it was bigger than just growing food, that it was about community building and community vitality, local food. Then the economy tanked, and then it was a no-brainer.
Well, it sounds like our economy is pretty much what influenced you to
Absolutely.
get involved in urban farming.
Absolutely.
Well, aren't we lucky here in Richmond? Because we need so much more of that. Why Richmond?
Areas like Albany and El Cerrito already are in comfort zones. And it's much harder for them to understand the need for change. It's much harder for them to understand the importance of environmental well-being because they're very set and don't want any change. Richmond, on the other hand, welcomes anything that's kind of a breath of fresh air and positive and
Yes.
meeting some of the social needs,
Yes.
the needs of hunger and some homelessness and those types of things. And surprisingly, given the kind of reputation of Richmond, I found it a much more agreeable, forward-thinking, welcoming environment than any I've ever been in.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So tell us then, what is it? Tell us about your organization,
Okay.
Self-Sustaining Communities.
Right,
Tell us
right.
about that and describe what you do, what it is that you're doing here.
Okay, Self-Sustaining Communities is an all-volunteer charitable organization. We've passed out close to 10,000 fruit trees, fruit, nut, and olive trees. We've established or helped to establish 4 urban farms. We prefer the communities do it themselves, but we help provide materials and some volunteer efforts because I think when the community does it itself, it's very empowering.
Yes.
And then we bring in new ideas like rainwater harvesting benches to sit on a lot where you can have your seating, but you can gather rainwater outside of the economic realm. The trees we donate freely, obviously, and then we get seeds donated that we give out and chickens. And we're actually hoping to go all the way through all the survival needs of energy, housing, food, transportation, and social inclusion in green ways that the community does by creating themselves. And then they receive housing and energy and food by creating it outside of the normal economic realm.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about, Linda.
Thank you.
Where are you located? Tell us a little bit about the land that you're using and how you came by it.
The first lot where I'm actually living is over by American soil in the Southwest Richmond
Yes,
Annex.
yes.
And there's a 10,000 square foot lot that the use of has been donated by Kevin Hampton.
Oh.
And then we're helping, at the request of other city council people. We've helped Lena at 6th and McDonald by providing materials for her, and she really is a formative partner with us now. And then we help Andromeda Brooks at First and Chancellor. And we got our first natural building structure up there made out of adobe made out of local clay. It's a greenhouse out of all recycled materials.
Wow.
And so it's all volunteer, and then we bring in either people who know how to do these things to teach us as a community skill building. We have beehive workshops, and we have beehives on the various sites. And then a fourth one in Parchester Village that has a little less of community involvement, except for some other guy in Richmond who loves going out there and doing it. So those are the locations currently.
That's great. And so you use all volunteers. And so if someone said, I really love that program, I want to get involved, how can they get involved?
They could contact us they could either go to any of those sites if they know where they are and just say, I want to be part of this. They could also, if they had a location near them and they wanted to do something like this, or in their own neighborhood, we'd be willing to help pass out trees and seeds, and if they can organize or even disorganize, it doesn't have to be all in place. It can be one step at a time.
Yes.
We're happy to help with that, and so we have a website, and of course my phone number.
Okay, well tell us your website. What is the website?
The website is self-sustainingcommunities.org,
Okay.
and the phone number is 510-230-0904.
So Linda, if you imagine a better Richmond, what does it look like?
That's a really good question. A better Richmond is when all the community members know that they equally create the quality of the community, and that each person is respected and valued at least by themselves internally.
Yes, yes.
And that becomes a value in our society, as opposed to what you own or what you look like, but that the importance of being part of the whole picture, that everybody plays their part meaningfully.
Absolutely. Well, that's a beautiful, I think, way for us to conclude our interview today. It's such a pleasure. We've been blessed today by Linda Schneider on Pride and Purpose, featuring me, Jovanka Beckles, your host. Linda, thank you so much for joining us. It was indeed a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the continued greatness and blessings that you bring to our city. Thank you.
Thank you.